Hey everyone, I'm Darshana Patel, energy healer, medium, channel, and host of Enlighten Up. Join me for episodes each week on the Lighter Side Network as I interview intriguing guests, channel spirits, and even perform some stand-up comedy to enlighten us on living an empowered and authentic life. Are you ready? Let's raise the vibe. The Lighter Side Network, where the everyday meets the extraordinary.
Hola, everybody. It's Laura Boone with The Real Ethereal Show. And today I'm going to add to my astrology shows, and I'm going to be talking about houses in a person's chart. We have previously talked about what I call the three-legged stool of someone's personality. Just to review, that's your sun sign, your moon sign, and your ascendant. And when I am working in a person's chart, those are the first three things that I look for that I start to try to talk about with somebody. The fourth thing that I look for is what house is that person's sun in? Or when I look at a person's chart, are there lots of planets in one house? Or are there interesting aspects in a certain house or a grouping of houses? So that's what we're going to talk about today. So you may be asking right now, what is a house? So if you've ever seen a chart is, as you guys know, is based on a 360-degree circle, and each pie piece here or house is 30 degrees of that circle. Each house is ruled by the 12 signs, and there would be 12 30-degree pie pieces, if you will, in a circle. So when you're born, this X in the middle here, this is essentially a picture of the sky when a person's born at exactly the time that they were born, in the exact place on the planet that they were born. So there's a lot of math here and calculus that you can, thank goodness, plug into a computer and not have to plot yourself like they did back in ancient times. So I wouldn't be an astrologer, by the way, if I had to calculate all this. So that makes it easy for us. So all of these pie pieces and or houses are ruled by signs of the zodiac in the same order. So it starts with Aries, Taurus, Gemini, and it goes down through the same exact astrological order. But when we're born, the ascendant, which starts right here, puts all of these houses, they start at a different place that's unique to you in your chart. So it could start anywhere on this wheel. And so that means that everybody's houses are unique to them in terms of what sign is on the cusp or at the beginning of that house. That means that sign is really influencing that house in your life, in your chart. So today I'm going to talk about, you'll notice I have 3 of these pie pieces highlighted. And I'm going to talk about the earth houses today, which are 2, 6, and 10. 2, 6, and 10. And just like we all know the elements, there are 4 elements in astrology. Well, there's a reason behind that. There are 4 groups of 3 families like this in a chart. And you'll also notice that these pie pieces or houses, the earth houses, are all roughly 120 degrees apart from each other. So the relationship is 120 degrees. That is called an aspect. When we talk about in astrology, there are a few different relationships by degrees in astrology, and they're called aspects. And some are thought of to be more challenging, and some are thought of to be more, they give us more talents, they're an easier relationship, and they're very beneficial in a person's chart. So when we talk about 120 degrees, we're talking about what's called a trine, Trine. And many of you have heard that term before, and if you're an astrologer, you know what that term means. So a trine is harmony. A trine is happy. A trine comes together with whatever it's trining with and makes it easier. So all of the elements, all the earth, this kind of makes sense. It starts to make sense. All of the earth signs trine each other, which means they all have a lot in common, which means they all work together. It's why when you're, reading your very rudimentary books on, who are you harmonious with in a relationship? Like, what are signs that are good for you? If it's another earth sign, like Taurus goes great with Capricorn, or Capricorn goes great with Virgo, and vice versa, they all can intermix and they all are harmonious together. Because, you guys, on this wheel, they trine. That's why they're all at 120 degrees of each other, which means they all work. So today we're going to talk about the earth houses, what those houses mean, and if you have your sun in 2, 6, or 10, you're going to learn what that means today. Also, if you have a grouping of planets, or if you have an aspect of planets that are in these 3 houses, or you have things going on in these 3 houses, or one of these 3 houses more than other houses, then this is going to be a really good show for you to listen to, because you're going to really start to understand some of the themes in your life, some of the things in your life that are going to be more important to you than others. Or it could mean that there are some recurring challenges over and over again in your life. That's what you can see when you look at houses in a chart. That's what I zone in on immediately when I sit down in front of a client. So the 3 houses that we're going to talk about today, as I said before, are 2, 6, and 10, and they're called the earth houses. What does that mean in general? Well, the earth houses are all going to have to do, as you can imagine, if you know anything about astrology, they're going to have to do with your possessions. They're going to have to do with money. They're going to have to do with work. And they're a lot of the time going to have to do with your body, the earth, your relationship with things, and the physical world. That's earth. So all of these houses have a special part of that they rule. The second house is ruled by Taurus. So it's very Taurian what it rules in a person's life. The second house has to do with money, possessions, anything physical in this world and your relationship to it. Okay? And again, let's talk about for a second, the phases of development of a human being are kind of mirrored in the signs. So the houses are no different. So the second house is really almost the toddler or the 2-year-old, the toddler way of looking at the world. A person with a lot of second house influence, or a person with their sun in the second house, would probably have a very interesting relationship with things. They might have a symbiotic relationship with things. They may feel like things represent them. Things may be very important in their life. If they have negative aspects in their second house, it may be that they don't think about things enough, or they deny that they need money or need things, or that they need to take care of things. So it could really be a big contrast in a person's second house. The other thing to know about a second house is it's also your relationship with yourself. It's how much do you have a lot of self-value, or do you not have self-value? So again, depending on the aspects, that's what this could denote. The other thing to think about with a house is what sign is on the cusp of that second house. So the house is ruled by Taurus, but depending on what time you were born and where you were born, what you need to look at is the cusp, or the beginning of that house in your chart. What sign is on the beginning of that house? So for example, you could have Gemini at the beginning of your second house, which is ruled by Taurus. So that means that you're going to have a very Gemini way of dealing with Taurus and second house issues. What could that mean? I would assume or discuss with a client, do you have a hard time focusing on keeping track of your money or keeping track of your things? Do things come and go very easily out of your life? In other words, like, is it hard for you to keep money in a bank account, right? Do you get bored with your things? Do you have a new car? A person with a Gemini on their second house cusp, they probably lease cars a lot. They probably rent. They probably don't own a lot of properties. If they do own properties, they go in and out of them. They sell them quickly. Geminis get bored. Geminis want to be mobile. Geminis don't want to root, right? They don't want to stay still. They're very intellectual and they jump around a lot. So what does that mean when Gemini's on the house, the second house of how you relate to your things? Do you see how this kind of starts working? So that would shade it very differently than if Capricorn was on the cusp of a second house in someone's chart. That would be the polar opposite, because Capricorns are very methodical, they're very rooted, they're very process oriented, or rather not Capricorns, but people with Capricorn in their chart, or if Capricorn's on the cusp of that house, then they may be very different than a Capricorn in every other aspect of their life. But I could look at their chart and say, you have Capricorn on that second house. I bet you have a couple of little hidden bank accounts that, people don't know about. You're a squirrel. You got your money stashed here and there. And I will tell you right now, you could be a person, the rest of your chart is you're really forgetful and you're crazy and you're, freedom loving and, hippy dippy. And you know exactly how much money you have in your bank account. I guarantee you. Or you have a tally somewhere. You are saving up so that you can finally own your own home. Like, everything else could be really bohemian and free and different, but by God, you want your things and you want to know they're paid for and you want to know everything's buttoned up financially. So those are two ways to really look at this differently. If your sun is in the second house, that could mean that your career is very oriented about amassing things, right? So a sun in the second house, or Pluto in the second house, or strong planets like that in the second house, that's a powerhouse. That's somebody who could really rule an empire. People who have Pluto in the second house, watch out. Because they are about control and power and dominion over things, right? So they amass things. I love to talk about with my clients, if you have Jupiter in your second house and it's not aspected negatively anywhere, that means that you really were born with the money faucet turned on in your life. So, oh my gosh, I have clients that have Jupiter in their second house and they're just if they're stressed about money, I just take their hands. I'm like, you need to stop. But you've always had money, right? They always shake their head. Or I swear they have a trust fund somewhere and they're stressed out about money and they just really don't need to be. Also, Jupiter in a second house could mean that you spend money a lot because Jupiter overindulges, right? So somebody with Jupiter in their second house could overindulge, but I guarantee you they'll never run out of money. It's like the fishes and the loaves in the Bible, right? They spend, but then there's always money left. It's kind of a phenomenon. So that's your second house. So let's move on to your sixth house. The sixth house is one of my favorite houses, and it's very interesting. Again, it's an earth house. It's trines the second house and the 10th house. But the sixth house is it's getting less personal, you guys. It's less about owning stuff and it's more about your dailiness and your relationship with work and people around you in your dailiness. So it's your daily work. It's also the house of service, which means that if you have a lot of aspects in your sixth house, there's going to be a lot of questions or themes of service in your life. Let me give you some examples. A lot of people who have strong, if their sun is in the sixth house, or if they have a lot of planets in their sixth house and they're aspected in a positive manner, I've seen so many people that come to me with their charts that are in the medical profession. They are healers, they are nurses, like a ton of nurses, where they get up every day and their job is to care for others. It's a very service oriented profession. The other thing that's really interesting, you guys, people who are aspected sometimes with a challenge in the sixth house, a lot of times they are tasked, maybe not by choice, to take care of a child with special needs or a parent that's ailing. In other words, they're forced, or not forced, but it's been sort of surprise. Now you've got this duty and this responsibility to be of service. And one thing I love about astrology, you read somebody's chart like this and you just go, they might feel like, wow, I've had a lot more on my plate than a lot of other people, right? But when you see it in a chart, it's like, this is your lesson. This is really the theme that you're here, your soul's here to deal with. Another interesting way that manifests in someone's chart in the sixth house, you may be somebody with special needs, right? You may be somebody who gets into a car accident and all of a sudden you've lost the use of your limbs and now other people have to serve you. So it really goes both ways. You could be someone who is going to be tasked with giving service to others, or you could be someone who needs to receive service from others. So it's really interesting. The sixth house is just laden with all kinds of scenarios, but really lovely lessons about interdependence, I would say. Okay, so the next house is the 10th house. Now, the 10th house is one of my favorites. And I'm going to hold up my diagram again because I think this is really important. So you'll notice the line that goes right across the chart, and that's the horizon line, and this is the ascendant, and that's the descendant. Whenever you're looking at a chart, really what's below this line is more personal. It's more introverted. I mean, these are the personal houses. These are the houses that are more introverted. So the second and the sixth house are both below this line. So that doesn't mean that people, given their aspects or their signs, wouldn't be very much in the public eye or would be hermits or introverts at all. But what it does mean is that a lot of what they're going to be up to, if there's an emphasis here, is going to be either relating with things in a personal way or relating with your dailiness or your work in a personal way. The 10th house here is right there at your midheaven, and it is above this line. So, and it's an earth sign and it's a work sign, or excuse me, earth house and it's a work house. So what does that say if it's above that line? Common sense is going to start to tell you the 10th house is very public. If you have a lot of planets or aspects to the 10th house, you are someone, I call the 10th house the podium or the stage of a person's chart. How much are they going to be in the public eye? Are they, anybody who has their sun in the 10th house or who has a lot of planets in the 10th house is being given a platform to speak. People are going to want to listen to them. They are the leaders, if you will, and whatever sign is on that midheaven is going to be how they're leaders. The 10th house is ruled by Capricorn. So Capricorn is the leadership earth sign. So you're going to have some talents and innate abilities if you have a strong 10th house as a leader. So interestingly, when I have a client that comes to me and they have maybe a more introverted or a mutable or a more passive sign on their midheaven, i.e., Sagittarius or Virgo or Pisces, for example. Those are the three mutable signs. Sometimes these folks, they might be introverted and they might be not as much in the public eye, but that's kind of what their destiny is. And a lot of times my counseling is, you really have a platform that you've been given to be able to reach people about what matters most to you. It could be the philanthropy that you love. It could be your life story, that maybe you've had something tragic happen, or you've had a really interesting childhood or an interesting life story or interesting events in your life. If you have a lot of planets on your midheaven and you have one of those more mutable signs, it's people like that need to push themselves a little bit more to express those things if they have a lot in their 10th house. And I've met with folks that kind of shake their head and they go, I do have a lot to say. I have written a lot, or, and people have asked me to publish it, or I get asked a lot to speak on this topic, but I don't feel like I'm a good speaker. Why me? And, my comment back to them is, why not you? And you've been given this platform so that you'll speak your truth or do your teaching. So the 10th house it's also, oh my gosh, if you have a big bold sign on your 10th house, if you've got Aries on your 10th house, or, any one of those, Libra, a lot of performers have a strong 10th house. It's kind of uncanny if you look up celebrity charts. A lot of, especially, the musicians of the world, my gosh, if you have Leo on your 10th house and then you've got your sun in the 10th house, or you've got lots of planets in your 10th house, you are destined to be in front of a camera. You're destined to, be on a stage, and you want to be on a stage. I have my sun in the 10th house, so in Capricorn. So I'll never forget when I was first learning astrology, and my mentor and teacher first looked at my chart, and I was probably, 25-ish, and I was, I don't know, in a very introverted kind of career and felt kind of introverted. And I remember him looking at me and saying, so you're a Capricorn, so you're going to be a late bloomer in this. He said, but one day you will have a stage. One day you will be leading something, and one day you will have a platform where people will hear you. And he was right. I have a company now, I'm doing this. I have all these aspects to my life where I have a platform and a podium from which I'm speaking, but I never, ever have planned on that. I've never, ever thought that would be true. But he was really not talking about my sign or anything in my chart. He was talking about my strong 10th house. So if you have a strong 10th house, look at that house and think about, am I, holding back or feeling like I'm just not quite ready for my career? You need to ask yourself a question. You need to stop holding yourself back. People with a lot in their 10th house and it's well aspected, I like to say they have turbo underneath their hood of their car. So you need to stop having those self-doubts, and you need to go out and get it, because you have the ability to achieve a whole lot of success.
Hey Laura, I have a question.
Yes.
Something that's hey everybody, I'm Jesse.
This is Jesse.
Yeah.
Hey Jesse.
I'm learning about houses too. This is my first lesson. I'm curious, because I'm a little confused here. You said that Capricorn rules the 10th house. Does that mean the 10th house, like Capricorn is always in the 10th house?
That's a great question. No. What that means is every house is ruled by a sign, i.e. Taurus rules the 2nd house, Virgo rules the 6th house, Capricorn rules the 10th house. But when we're born, depending, Jesse, on the time and the place where we were born, there's going to be a sign on the cusp of those houses that may have no relation at all. Like, let's say on the 2nd house, you have Aries on your second house, but that house is ruled by Taurus. So what that means, Jesse, is that you would be dealing and all of the Taurus issues of the second house, i.e. money, property, things, and self-worth, you are going to deal with in a very Aries way. Does that make sense? Like that's how it's going to manifest in your life. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have, so every house in your particular chart is going to have a different sign on the cusp. So here's a better way to say it. Whatever sign that is on the cusp of a house is how you deal with the issues of that house. Does that make sense? So you're going to deal with it in an Aries way. That's how you're going to deal with second house issues if Aries is on the cusp of your house. If it's the 10th house, which is Capricorn issues, which is issues of public career, climbing, success, having publicity, having a podium, being able to speak. So whatever sign is on the cusp of that house is how you're going to approach all of those things. That's how houses work. That's a great question. You helped me say that better. Thank you. So, in conclusion, you guys, I am going to do all of the different elements and their corresponding houses. That's going to be a part of my series. So, I'm going to do the air houses, the fire houses, and the water houses in subsequent episodes. And I just want to say one other thing too before I close. So there is something in astrology called a grand trine. And what that means is when you have planets that trine each other in 3 of the harmonious houses. So they're all at 120 degrees together, and it makes a triangle, which actually I have one in my chart. See this triangle? Goes like that. That's actually not in the earth houses, but a grand trine is going to light up one of these really beautiful axes. Is that how you say it? Jesse, axes. And if you have a grand trine in your chart, you really, really need to think about the element there. You are really, really talented and very blessed when it comes to that element and all of the things that that element rules. So if you had a grand trine in your earth houses, wow, you'd be amazing at business. It'd be really easy for you to make money. You would really be able to serve others with all of the wealth and the power and authority that it's easy for you to garner in this lifetime. You also would probably be a leader in terms of a publicity figure or, a figurehead within your industry. So a grand trine in earth houses is a really wonderful thing to have. So we're going to talk about with the other elements what a grand trine could mean within those elements too in later episodes. So I hope this has been helpful today, you guys. Please write me and make comments if you have any further questions. I would love to talk with you guys about this. We've been having some really cool discussions about astrology on the boards at Vimeo, so I'd love to hear from you guys more. But thank you for listening today. I appreciate it, and I will see you next time. Take care.